I am live, and I'm about to bring up the weekly guest of the hour. And real quick, just so because she's in costume, and so I thought I would be in costume too. And I'm from Tennessee, so let's see if she can guess what I am. Hold on a second. Let me bring her up in stream, ladies and gentlemen. The one and only Monica Perez. Hey, Monica.
Heyo.
How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. So what am I?
I'm going to go out on a limb.
Well, I don't want to cut you off, but
You're a lumberjack.
I'm a lumberjack. We cheated. I told her that beforehand. And that's not.
Well, you had to tell me because you didn't have the axe. But you could be an axe murdering lumberjack. You might as well be an axe murdering.
I mean, it is.
I grew up 17 miles from Manhattan, the island of New York. My cousins grew up in Brooklyn, and they would come visit me and think they were going to find lumberjacks. I mean, we barely had grass. Yeah, like they were just anything outside anything that had grass, they thought of as the wilderness.
I still have trees here in the back from the tornado back in March that came through and just ripped everything up that I'm still cutting up and putting into.
Can you use the wood?
Oh, yeah. I got a big fire pit. I have a fire pit 2 or 3 times a week. Yeah. Me and my dog go back there, or sometimes my kids will come over. So, hey, I have a quick question.
Okay.
First of all, is your outfit something specific with the spider in your hair, or are you just a witch?
Well, last night, so you were at our party last night, the disappearing patron party for the propaganda report. And I did have like the whole witch outfit on with like drapey arms. And when I was making the cocktails, my son was like, you really look like you are conjuring something up in that cauldron of yours. So I'm a witch, kind of.
What is that? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Little witch.
Okay.
But I just like the spider, so.
See, I'm glad you did that because a lot of people may not be able to see it on the screen. Hey, so let's do this. We're going to have a good talk today. I want you to tell everybody, you alluded to a party that you had last night. I think you should tell people about the party because some people may tune in and go, I want to go to the party, but they don't know how to get to the party. Hey, by the way, thank you for inviting me on the party for about 10 minutes.
Holy cow. Thank goodness you were there. And I really appreciate what a good sport and a professional you are. And that my co-host, Brad Binkley, and I do a show every day because it's called the Drive Time News Blast on our platform, The Propaganda Report. But on every other Friday, we do a disappearing patron party for different tiers of our Patreon, patreon.com/propaganda report. And it's live and it disappears. So you have to be there from 8 to 9:30 Eastern time and people chat along the thing. And it gets a little crazy, which is why it just disappears forever.
Yeah.
And so last night, Binkley got stuck at the liquor store because he's really not a big drinker. So he had to go out and get booze for the party because you just have to have a drink or THC. You don't have to as an observer, but we do. So his car broke down and he's such not a drinker that he doesn't know how to use Uber or Lyft. Like he just didn't even think about it. So he was just kind of waiting for AAA. And then someone was like, I think you better catch an Uber.
But I tuned in and there was, and by the way, hello, Franny. And there's JJ Boogie said, I wish I could have been there last night, but he had a gig. That's good.
Yeah. It's always fun.
But so I tune in and there you were in all your glory as the witch. Yeah. Like that. And then there was this little icon of a hidden person that looked like a robot, but it was the voice of Franny.
The hidden Fran.
The hidden Fran.
Yeah, the hidden Fran. Thank you, hidden Fran and Clint for popping on.
And then Binkley came back on and saved the day and y'all went on and had fun.
And then we just booted you guys without delay.
Sorry. Yeah, the second string got out of there. The first string got in.
I was completely at least half in the bag because I've been running around, I hadn't eaten, and I always measured out. I make my cocktails ahead of time. It's not like there's any variation there, but I did not eat, and I was kind of like whatever, kind of hungry, so I just chugged the whole darn I had them all with me in a thermos, and I just drank them all within the first 15 minutes.
So what were you drinking last night out of the witch's cauldron? What was the brew?
Well, it was like a whiskey sour, but with
extra whiskey.
Without the egg white. No, I don't do extra whiskey. With clementine juice, like a little. I always think of clementines, like juicing a clementine is like milking a cat.
Never tried to milk a cat, but that's cool. Did you do that a lot in Brooklyn, up in New York? Did you milk cats a bunch? Is that what your family was? That was a sustenance of life?
It's a Meet the Fockers.
Oh, I remember the reference. I've just never met anybody in real person in life that actually said they milk cats.
Franny's slamming me over here. He's taking a shot at me. So my husband, meanwhile, Ricardio, my husband, texted me. He wasn't watching, so he did not know how far gone it had already gotten.
Right.
So he texted me and said, "Do you need a refill on your cocktail?" And I was like, "A refill? Nobody wants me to have a refill."
I'm milking cats. Bring it.
I know, right? The Hidden Fran.
Oh, that's a great visual. You keep talking. I'm going to practice milking cats. Keep talking.
The Hidden Fran texted him and told him to, rather than bring me another cocktail, to bring me some food. Then, true to his Texican heritage, he brought me a delicious street taco, which he made, and envy rippled through the crowd.
We are, just so you know, all of your fans are appreciative that your husband saved you from a life of cat milking. Think of where you would be.
He was very instrumental in me keeping my wheels on.
Yeah.
I would have been pretty wheels off if, anyway, little unconditional love goes a long way.
Yes, it does. So, so the drink you had last night, it looked festive. It was a kind of a bright color.
Super delicious. Yeah.
And what was the name?
I like the orange. So I call it a catnip.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like cat nipples.
Just can't get away from it, ladies and gentlemen.
But I like it because it's orange and it's very Halloween-y.
Vibrant. Yeah, it was energy. Hey, okay, so we've got the cat milking out of the way. Let me check that off the list. No more cat milking talk. We talked about your drink last night, and there was something else I was going to ask you about.
I think the Hidden Fran is emphasizing that.
Yeah, I saw what Fran said, but if I'm not mistaken, you just had one big giant drink that was the thermos, and you were actually no. How many thermoses of liquor did you go through?
Not having hair of the dog. No, I make 3 small drinks. Like I don't exceed 3 ounces of alcohol, but once I had one that was like overproof, so I didn't realize it. That was a little bit sloppy.
Well, since we're talking about drinks, and then we'll move into the real stuff before we start, because we'll take everything, we'll go deep here in a few minutes on stuff. Shaken but not stirred. R.I.P. to Sean Connery today.
Righto.
It just broke my heart, man.
No, martini.
And I love the new James Bond guy. I think he's great. I think what's his name?
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig. I love Daniel Craig, but to me, the original James Bond, Sean Connery. I know he's not the original, but to me, the best James Bond was Sean Connery.
Yes.
Golly.
Yes, agreed.
Shaken but not stirred, sir.
It is not safe for work, but if you ever want to watch the George Lazenby documentary, who was like James Bond for one episode after Sean Connery.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Wow. What made it good?
Jason, I'm not having hair of the dog.
So,
I might have a little eye of newt.
Unless you're not having any catnip.
I'm not having any catnip.
Any catnip. All right. So what made that documentary so good, though? What about it was so good?
Well, what made it so bad was the unexpected, extremely graphic depictions of the stories he was telling of living large in the 60s, from drugs to sex, like stuff that I was like, oh, is that what that means? I was like, wow, I didn't even know people did that. So there was that. But he was like Valerie Harper. He just did this spectacular failure that just it boggles the mind, because he was going on the promo tour of his movie and he refused to be Bond. Like he grew his beard out and he had long hair and he would just show up without a suit to like promote the James Bond movie. And they were like, you can't do that. And they wouldn't.
See, to me, Sean Connery delivered the one-liners so well.
Yeah.
And that's what
I think because he was genuinely an a-hole. I think that is what
I don't know.
helped him out.
Well, like, the time at the casino table when the girl introduces herself and he goes, James Bond, and she goes, plenty of tool. And he goes, named after your father, of course. Plenty of tool. And
yeah.
I was like, yes.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
You take stuff seriously? Yeah. Plus, he was super, super handsome. That doesn't hurt. Like Daniel Craig is not really handsome.
I don't know. I bet there's a lot of women out there that think he was handsome. He's in really good shape. He is fit. Hey, I have let's branch off before we get into your tweets.
Okay.
Because I sent them to you today. So I have a question for you. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Is your mind ready? The spiders? Okay, you're good. So you and I have talked over the last 6 months, especially, that Trump is the Trojan horse, right? Trump's a Trojan horse. He's you've said before that a lot of the stuff, the agenda that could never get pushed through if it was not for a Republican like Trump.
I'd have to think more about whether it's a Trojan horse, but.
Well, but okay, so Trump is not what Trump
is
not
at least controlled opposition.
Yeah.
It might be, but like I invented an expression that totally applies, which is the contrary law of democracy. You cannot get the things you are most afraid of from the other side. That will never happen because you're too hyper-vigilant against it. Right. It has to be delivered by your side. So what you are most afraid of, your side, only your side can and will deliver. The contrary law of democracy.
Okay. So is your mind, before I ask the real question, let me ask you this.
Like $5 trillion deficits.
Yes, I get it. The COVID that came along and forced that.
No,
but anyway,
no, it's
so
not.
My question to you is
nothing to do with the deficit.
My question to you is this. Do you believe that Biden and Trump are, if they are controlled assets, do you believe they both serve the same master? Because I think it has to be two different groups at odds, because the way the mass media is hiding the Biden stuff, it's almost to help Biden. So if Trump is the person they're wanting to use to bring in and usher in all this other stuff, why would they want to have a change at the top? I guess that's my question.
Like who? Who do they want at the top? What do you mean?
Well, like I'm saying, Trump. Well, if I guess my point is, I
don't think anybody wants Biden to win, even the Democrats.
But why would the media not cover this? But why would the media not cover this Hunter Biden stuff then?
Because it's completely validating your illusion that there are two parties.
But it could lead to Biden winning. Because if the mass media is not going to push out that Biden's a corrupt family, the Biden family can be corrupt, then that could sway. If that was out,
but I was covering that.
Yeah, but you were
2 full years ago. No, I mean the information was all out there. They were actively suppressing all of the stuff about the real corruption in Ukraine around Biden. And the reason that even came up is because they are investigating it in Ukraine. That's why Biden got the prosecutor removed. That's why this thing, if you go back, there's a lot of back and forth. George Kent, that Valerie or whatever her name was, that the ambassador, those people, the George Soros and the U.S. federal government set up an anti-corruption council in Ukraine in order to draw off the investigation from the people who would have led to Biden and Kerry.
But I guess my question is, if people don't want Biden, why would ABC, NBC, CBS, and CNN, why would the mass media? Why would they not cover Biden? Because by covering it up, it's allowing a lot of people that may not know about it. I'm surprised how many times when I send it to people, they go, I've not read all this, because it seems to me they're trying to help Biden stay in the race. And I don't get that. If Trump, why would they actively help Biden if people want it? Whoever's in control, the powers that be.
But are you suggesting that all the media is controlled by the same people?
Most of it. Here's what I'm saying. If there's one big group that's controlling Trump and Biden that I don't understand it, it almost appears to me that there's a big group of people that are seeking power that may be people like controlling Trump, and then another group that's controlling Biden, and they're at odds.
I do not think that.
That's what I was trying to get. So you think it's one big group?
Yes, who pretends to be two different groups so that we don't rise up.
So apparently they do want to help Biden in because they've told their mass media companies not to cover the Hunter Biden story.
No, I think.
Well, then what would be the reason they don't talk about Hunter Biden on ABC and CBS and all that?
Why do they not talk about? I think that for it all to be plausible, it's just mildly subtle, like mildly, just subtle enough to actually be plausible. Jake.
But I mean, you got Twitter shutting down the story. Twitter actually shut down the story.
Twitter, these things, if you read the report from Iron Mountain and other things, it tells you very clearly that they always want to serve more than one purpose, if at all possible, with any kind of psychological operation. So this operation, Hunter Biden, there's a few elements here, and one is that it distracts any kind of investigation from real financial corruption and international political corruption to this guy has a drug problem and is a pedophile or whatever. Just like Ken Starr and Brett Kavanaugh. Well, Brett Kavanaugh covered up Vince Foster, but how Ken Starr moved the Whitewater investigation to a Monica Lewinsky sex investigation. Like that was so like nobody even. Do you even remember how Whitewater resolved itself? That was real financial corruption at the highest levels, including murder to cover it up.
You know what's really weird about this is when you start talking about it, this is how bad I think it is for people. And I think what I say, you'll understand. There's people like you that are engaged in this for decades. You've just been in it. Then there's people like me that heard about it, voted, considered myself informed. But a lot of these big topics now seem like they were in a fog because I had 3 kids. I had a 60-an-hour-a-week job. I was married. I had a mortgage, and I knew enough to, stay informed enough to, I thought, vote. But I didn't have time to do research. I didn't have time to go and read I didn't have time to connect the dots. And I think that's to their advantage because they know people aren't going to have either the resources or the time to sit down and go, now let me see how Whitewater worked itself out. I just read the headlines and moved on.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's why you should. So you're opening up a whole paradox here, and I'll answer all the questions about Biden. But what you should do is really plug in your assessment of me. Look at my evidence. Look at my track record. Look to see if my theories predict outcomes. Try to assess my personal integrity, my authenticity. If you believe what I'm saying, our personal relationship.
It's hard to take you serious with a spider on your head, but keep going.
Yeah. Right? Spider's part of it. Like I'm giving you information and you can put that in the bucket. And am I somebody whose information and analysis and presentation you can trust more than, less than, or the same as ABC? I would say more. If you know me, and a lot of people think that, and then they can just listen to me for 45 minutes a day. I'm not like, listen to me. I don't care about my outcomes, but you're
saying just find somebody like that you can trust.
Like just do not accept. So the mainstream media is the exact same as the parties. It's all just facets of the exact same.
Well, it's what you say. It's propaganda. Hey, do you like Glenn Beck at all?
I have liked him somewhat.
He talks a lot about the stuff you talk about.
I believe it, but the devil's in the details. Some people are with him. He really came out with stuff that was fascinating. People, I mean, he would take on his half-hour show what Woodrow Wilson was up to. I mean, it was pretty amazing. He did a beautiful job.
Yeah,
it was just to get people engaged in a current event show and history. It was masterful. And I remember when Obama specifically targeted him, and then at the peak of his career, he was fired from Fox, but I believe they gave him $80 million to start his own side stream.
The Blaze. Gig. Yeah.
So all of that stuff plays together. This is a sophisticated thing. We're talking about, trillions of dollars of money and power and also intergenerational aspects. So this is not an easy thing to do, but I was listening to somebody who wrote a book. And it was censored by the CIA. It was about drugs or something and the drug war. And it said, or the war in Vietnam. And they said, you can write anything you want, but you can't have all of these things in the same book. So on the one book, you can talk about, whatever, Army in Vietnam. The other book, you can talk about the Iran-Contra or something, but you cannot put it all together.
You can't have a book that connects the dots and shows you the
Right. They're
timeline.
not permitted. So that just, whether that's true or not, let's just, I mean, it's a thought,
It
right?
makes
I never
sense.
thought of that.
It
Right.
makes sense.
And so that means there's a very sophisticated approach to how to make sure this propaganda is effective enough that you don't go looking for someone like me. So so people will stop just short. Okay, there was a huge article in National Review this week, an extremely lengthy article about the Great Reset, which I've been talking about. Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, all of this stuff. Have you heard me talk about this?
Yeah,
Binkley and I have done Rockfin videos on it. They're reshaping the world, and they're using COVID as an excuse. But don't forget, the World Economic Forum was in on the novel coronavirus simulation with Johns Hopkins and Bill and Melinda Gates in October of 2019. So they set out the blueprint. They didn't predict it. The specificity is just too ridiculously acute. Like there's no way that this was not a plan.
Right.
Event 201 was a plan of this thing that's happening right now. Now, maybe there is a real microbe, maybe there isn't. I don't know, but that was a plan. So in this incredibly thorough article that included quotes from Klaus Schwab from December, National Review failed to mention at all, refer to even obliquely, Event 201. It says nothing about Event 201. It says they are exploiting this crisis. That one omission completely changes how the people who read that think about the World Economic Forum, because as soon as they say they planned it and executed it, they executed it. Where was National Review? I got fired, I think. That's my belief, that I got fired for pointing out not only that these guys planned it, but they executed it. Where's National Review about that? How could they have that kind of power in the world? That's a big question, and they make sure that you don't ask it.
Well, I'm not asking it for everybody that's eavesdropping. That's Monica Perez. I trust you. Look me deep in the camera, big brother. I trust you. Now, what I do behind the see, I would be great because I say that like this, and then you never know what I'm doing. I may be hustling.
Well, they know what you're doing.
Yeah, maybe you don't know.
Maybe.
Let's read what Franny said. They keep us busy working our asses off instead of questioning stuff. Why do we even give enormous amounts of money to the Ukraine or anywhere when we have such horrible debt? How come nobody asked that question? You know, I did not know until last night that Franny shared your anarcho-capitalist views. I thought she was a Trumpster too.
She's not as
Did I go down the wrong road? Did I?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to speak for her, but she's always liked the way that he's taking control of the media message. I think she thinks that he's a real person, and I just think that he's a puppet.
I think he's a real person too.
Yeah. So, I like about this phenomenon what everybody likes about it. I just attribute the agency to different entities, but I like that he taps into people's sense of real self-righteous disgust and all that about what's happening.
So what's your prediction for Tuesday? Because I've asked two people this on the air. Both of them predicted a Trump landslide.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Oh my gosh, I just don't see it. I mean, the turnout's been so big. We've had more people vote.
I feel like the turnout's big because people are voting for Trump. You don't think so?
Maybe. I don't know. I hope so. I do hope. What are you pointing to? Okay. I don't ever wear my glasses. I'm afraid.
Okay. Franny says.
I see it now. You convinced me that he is not Batman. Seriously. He's not Batman. He's not Batman. Politicians are not Batman, Batwoman. They're not royalty. As a matter of fact, I do believe that we should have term limits and they should serve a term and then go back to the damn farms.
You know, that's a good
like
point.
They're supposed to.
Like Patrick Henry. He's
George Washington.
Listen, here's the thing with Trump is you
okay?
only like him because you've been convinced that it would have been even freaking worse with Hillary. It would have been even worse than a $4 trillion deficit, completely closing down the economy and losing all of our rights, including states' rights, forever.
What state
But
rights have
Hillary,
we lost?
it would have been worse.
But what states' right have we lost so far? We haven't lost any state. He hasn't mandated a federal. Not under Trump. Not the last 8 months.
First of all, the pin that you pull out and the whole thing will come crashing down is not letting places like California and New York, with like probably the biggest welfare states in the world, deduct state and local taxes from federal taxes. They will just stop taxing their people and they will force the feds to give them the welfare. So then you've got Tennessee paying California's welfare.
But I think that's already an issue. I don't see what Trump has done. And I don't see that what Trump has done. He's not required a federal mandate. He hasn't gone in unless there's federal property.
I'm going to tell you, I have a list right here.
Yeah,
I will tell you all of the ways that
he didn't put in the federal, the education system and stuff. I'm just looking over the last 8 months what Trump has done to violate the independence of states.
I'm telling you that at the end of Trump's reign,
and real quick, JJ Boogie, if you're a president of the United States, you're not a real person.
Agreed. There under his reign, what he has overseen.
His reign.
Yes, you are eliminating, first of all, you're ushering, especially with this COVID thing and the deficits, and he's calling for larger bailouts by the federal government. That's the stimulus package he wants. And that bailout, a lot of it is going to go cash directly to the states.
But wait a minute, he did say
like 5 things.
Okay, but real quick, he did say, I heard him say this. If they would send me a bill that only paid money to the people that needed it, and nothing else, no pork, nothing else attached to it, he would sign it. Just to
what are you talking about?
Well, the stimulus package. Well, like people without a job. Yeah, people without a job that have lost their job and their job went away because of COVID. I get it. But I'm just saying he's not
their jobs away. It's not because of COVID.
But you can't switch. Wait a minute. We just said that he was going to sign off the money. He wants to sign more off to corporations, which may be true. I'm just saying he said out loud, which may have been a ruse.
I said states.
States. But he said he would just sign one off to the people and leave the states out of it. People without jobs. The jobs went away. Companies closed down.
So he's going to get a list of people without jobs.
Well, they have it right now. That's people that got the $1,800 check. That's what he's talking about. He said, I'll sign the bill just to send money to the people.
The fact is that he
and not the states
for the government to take all those people's jobs away, which the purpose was. I can't believe you believe this.
Well, but right now he's even in trouble with some of the governors and mayors because he won't bail them out. They're mad at him because he said, I'm not going to bail you out because you let your cities riot and destroy. Yeah.
You're saying that he's going to veto something?
Yeah. I'm saying he's already said he would. I bet he does. No. He's already said he won't bail them out.
He signs a deficit and he says, I'm never doing this again.
No, but I'm talking specifically about bailing out cities and states that have let the rioting go on. He's already said we're not bailing you out. He said,
"Oh, well, that's another loss of states' rights, where he goes in and says, I'm going to give or take money based on how you run your state." This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, but I don't listen. If you're going to let them destroy the Walmart and kill the community, I don't want the government to pay for that either. You pay for it, city. You take it from your taxpayers,
right?
Okay, I agree. That's what he's saying.
He's going beyond that. He's saying, and then he's using that as an excuse to have Barr go in and take people's guns away.
All right, here we go. Let's read. You do your 5. I'm going to read these. He spends too much money and does not follow the Constitution, so I'm not happy about that. He declared a state of emergency, which is awful. JJ Boogie, Trump ramped up the enforcement of federal gun control every year in office. Robert Starnes, many states want money to cover their fund mismanagement over decades.
And they're going to use this as cover to justify it. And
by the way, thank you for your service, Robert Starnes.
We'll see if he vetoes anything ever. He has taught Congress that he does not veto spending.
He'll veto it. Because he's
not going to bet. How much you want to bet? I bet you anything. He will not veto spending.
Okay. I don't know.
Spendy.
And you've already voted, right?
Yes.
You voted for me? Did you use me as a write-in?
Hey, I can't believe it. I guess maybe the online ballot didn't show a write-in, but when I got the ballot, they sent me a mail-in ballot, and it had a space for a write-in, so I wrote Ron Paul.
Oh, okay. I would love to get one vote. If somebody out there has not voted yet and you want to write in, I'll do it.
I voted.
I'm not turning over my taxes either, though.
I voted. Let's see. I looked at all the propositions, and then after I already filled in the ballot, I went and looked and see what the Libertarian Party said to do, and we were the same on everything except. Oh, they want people to vote at the age of 17 or 16 or something. That's on the ballot. I'm like, I would like less enfranchisement, but I did vote in favor of felon enfranchisement because my husband, who was against it, I was like, but you know what? Not one of those people was adjudicated to lose that right. And they were all plea bargains. So until, and there's no,
I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I would disagree. I think that conversation needs to have more dialogue. Here's why. I don't think if you're a violent felon offender, I think if you've imposed your will on other people, I don't think you should get your right back. I don't think you should be.
Okay. But so what rights so after they're out of jail, they're done. They've served their time. What rights can they have and what rights should they not have? Should they not have guns?
Right. They don't have guns. They don't have a right to a gun right now.
Yeah. I don't think people who use,
if you're a violent,
people who use guns. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say that seems correlated.
Yeah.
Do they have the right? I mean, it's hard because all rights are kind of the absence of your.
Well, some stuff you forfeit. Some stuff you forfeit.
But why voting?
Because I think if you're going to make it again, right now we're throwing all felons in a big basket. I'm saying that deserves more conversation because you can pick and choose out of there because not every crime is equal. Not every felon is equal as far as what they get egregious.
Yeah. This is what I'd like to see. I would like to see, first of all, I would like to abolish plea bargains.
Yeah, we've talked about that, and I think I agree with that.
Yeah. So then I would like in every sentence should be specific whether you've lost your gun rights, whether you've lost your right to vote. I mean, the sentence that you need due process on loss of liberties.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't know. Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't believe in automatic things because that violates your right to jury trial. It's like the 3 strikes you're out thing. It's unconstitutional.
But again, all this stuff is so intertwined. I mean, because then you've got the war on drugs, and you start looking at stuff, and you're thinking to yourself, how many of those felons are in jail for drugs? And if we weren't doing that, if we didn't have that war on drugs, then I don't know. There's so many. It's like everything else.
I've just simplified it. I've just absolutely cut to the chase, and it makes it much, much less complicated.
You just have to pick and choose. Every case is individual.
No, it's not pick or choose. If the state wants to go to you as an individual, and all rights are individual, and take away your rights, liberty, life, whatever, that needs to be. You get a trial by jury. That is your due process in the country.
And if you're found guilty, that right's gone.
What right's gone?
I mean, you can't vote. If you're found guilty.
No. If your sentence is that you lose the right to vote, then you can't vote. If your sentence includes.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if you're found guilty, though. If you go to trial. Oh, okay.
No. Not guilty and guilty are just whether or not you did the crime. And then there's the sentencing phase. Which means you get parole or probation or whatever. You get probation or you get to go to jail or you have to pay a fine or you're not allowed to be within 500 feet of a specific person.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So you have to be committed to a mental institution. Anything that takes away any liberties has to be specifically
involved in the sentencing phase.
To due process.
Yeah.
You cannot just assume that's not in the Constitution.
I like that. I think you just solved the problem. Hey, you want to read a few comments?
I know.
Real quick?
It took me a long time.
That one. No, I like that. Though. Did you just come up with that right now on this show?
No, although it came together today when I was figuring out how to vote. Sorry, no, but this is my,
No, I'm hurt now. Hold on, I'm crying.
It started with a guy, Call Me Snake, I think is his Twitter handle. He sent me a link to Thomas Zaz, who I had not heard of. He was a libertarian psychiatrist. And he pointed out that you should not be able to commit people for mental health reasons on less grounds than you can send someone to jail for a violent crime. Same thing with the red flag laws. Every single loss of liberty needs to be adjudicated according to the process outlined in the Constitution.
Well, I know several.
I agree with that.
I know several felons, and to be honest with you, and we're going to go through some of these comments because I don't want people to make comments and us ignore them. But I will say this: that there's a couple of them that they should have the right to vote. They're hard workers. That haven't been back in a long time. But there's some of them I know that shouldn't.
Fine, and let the jury decide, or let it be an element
of the sentencing
or whatever. Is that so? If someone has to pay their debt to society, at the end of that time, are you fully restored to your previous status, or are you not?
Well, and it could be.
Question also requires due process,
and I like that because it could be you go to jail for 6 years, you get out, and there's another 5 or 6 years you don't get to vote, and at the end of that, you get to start. And once you've proven you're out and you're not going back, you get to vote.
Here's something. I think that I don't even think you need to be deported. I don't even believe in deportation. But the only thing I would say should have as the sole punishment of disenfranchisement is like undocumented immigrant. If you entered this country illegally, I don't care if you, like, I'm not addressing that issue. Like, you can go out or not go out. I believe in the right to work and travel. If I want to give somebody, can live in the apartment in my house and be my maid and never, ever step foot anywhere outside of my property, I don't think you have a right to come and drag that person out. However, that person at no point ever for the rest of his or her life should ever be able to vote. Because the fact that you can get people who were handpicked as being the least well-educated people from very poor countries and bring them in here and then use their ability, their citizenship, or they're not even this. Nobody cares about citizenship. Don't ever give them citizenship, but you can let them have the right to work. But people will use that whole thing as a way to get this huge voting blocks to vote, let's say, Democrat. But although Reagan used it to get them to vote Republican, I knew Mexicans in Texas who would only vote for a Republican because Reagan gave them their
they did the right thing. We like those. We just don't like the ones that vote Democrat. This is easy, Monica. Come on.
Anyway, so I just feel like nobody comes here because they want the right to vote. They come here because they want the right to work. And
they also want health care, and they also want the education kids can get.
Not in the old days.
Not in the old days. I'm talking about now.
But now, okay, so you can eliminate. Yes.
Yeah, I can come here and get I get health care. My kid can go to school for free.
No one should get government health care or welfare, whether you're Mexican or U.S. If you pay taxes, if you want to have the socialist collective, if they're paying.
Wait a minute, hold on a second. Yeah. We're going to go through these comments. I'm disagreeing with you. If you're Irish and come here illegally, you should get everything that God intended because we're Irish. So now that's enough of that. Let's go through this. Robert Starnes, I totally agree with politician term limits to prevent 47 years in office. So that's a slam to Biden.
I do not.
I say that.
Yeah, I don't.
We have term limits. They're called elections. They're called elections. I just wish they would get out. Right. Buddy of mine, Artie Trotter. Hey, Clint, take a look at my Facebook page. I'm taking a poll to see who people are voting for. Yeah, everybody go check out Artie. He's a good dude. Franny. I know a few felons, nonviolent guys who got busted for pot, etc. They did their time. So why more punishment? Bad decision making, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it has to be relevant. You have to actually answer those questions.
Yes.
But my answer is you need to have due process.
I agree with you, because here's what I'm saying about that. When you say that, and I'm not saying, Franny, this is specific to yours. I'm just saying, I know a few felons that got arrested for pot. Behind the scenes on that, we don't know if one of them had violence in their history. We don't know if there's 10th time, 3rd time. We don't know. I agree with you. There's a lot of nuance, and that's why it should go to jury, and that's why it should be sentenced. Yeah, individual.
Yes, 12 people are supposed to think about your individual case. That's why mandatory sentencing, totally unconstitutional.
Yep, Robert, being a convicted felon loses your rights to farm and vote. We talked about that.
Why?
Well, I just think he's stating what it is. No citizenship, no vote. That's what Artie's saying.
No, he's not saying. No. You don't always lose your right to vote. Not every state has that.
Right.
That's his opinion.
Artie, free drinks for the Irish. Absolutely. Let's see, Franny. Everyone gets health care. Hospitals do not turn anyone away. It's government health insurance. It seems to me that is not. Yes, I agree with that. Yes, that's what I was.
Yeah, no one should have any of those things. Yeah. And everyone should have the right to work and travel. And voting, I question whether voting is even Monica. Valid. They had due process by the courts upon conviction.
Conviction.
Define due process, please.
I know Robert really well. So real quick, Robert was a police officer for 30-something years. He is a great guy. Let me give you a little bit about his backstory. Why I think you'll like him. Robert lost, I want to say 200 pounds and ran an Ironman.
Whoa! Wow!
Yeah,
wow.
He is a huge motivational story. Great guy. And part of his story, there's some tragedy there. We won't get in now, but you talk about a story that is got all the hooray moments and all the tears. His story is one that would tear your heart out. So we'll let him think about that. What does due process mean by that if he wants to respond? But I see your point. And you and I.
What's wrong with that?
I think we agree.
The system could tolerate it that's all we pay for, right? So we pay $7 trillion in taxes. And the one thing that would be a legitimate function for those taxes, they tell us they can't afford because they need to push through so many criminals who don't do anything but smoke their own pot that they grew in their own backyard.
There's a number of those, but that's not all of them. That's not everybody. Yeah.
Well, the majority is drugs.
Yeah.
The majority is drugs, and the drugs should just not be illegal.
And under drugs is not just pot. There's also methamphetamine and cocaine and heroin and LSD. I care.
If drugs were not illegal. If drugs were legal, you would have the natural stuff, the good stuff. Nobody wants meth. It's just
unless you get hooked on it, connected, and then you're screwed.
No, I'm saying like they would just do freebase coke, like in the old days.
That's not good? What kind of world are you living in? Stop that.
Don't you understand? These things are created by prohibition. And look, I would posit that you should never be sent to jail for a mala prohibita rather than a mala and say crime. So if you have not actually violated somebody else's rights, you should never go to jail. So if you're selling a junkie junk and
I've got a philosophical question for you. If you will allow me to ask you. Sure. Okay. So I'm going to ask it a little bit rhetorically, kind of knowing the answer, but I think it's good to hear your response because you have a way of putting things that explains it.
Okay.
So if I sell you a drug that affects just your life, but
nothing affects just your life.
That's what I was going to ask. So that's the question. So when you say shouldn't get in trouble if I do something just to me or just to it's at 101. If I sell junkie, a junk, but that adds to the degradation of society, which then I live in.
Yes. You know what else does that? Gun ownership.
I don't understand what you mean by that. What do you mean by gun ownership? That doesn't affect it negatively.
It doesn't. Who said negative? I don't know. Some people think that crazy people who are not known to be crazy, who have guns, may and do affect other people.
Right.
Here's the thing. My computer right now, it's a little hot. There's a fan going.
Yeah.
That heat is entering the atmosphere. It's entering the atmosphere.
Oh, I thought you were complaining. I was like, oh my gosh, she's still drunk.
Every single thing we do, everything we do has
an effect. Yes.
A moving air.
Yeah, I get it. It's the butterfly effect.
We have decided what has emerged over thousands of years are now, and I would even go further than this, but are principles of liberty that either you're Platonic or you're Aristotelian. You're either saying that the highest, that the central entity to serve is society itself or is the individual. If it's society itself, then that drug thing goes also to welfare and every other thing.
Right.
If you're talking about the good of society, then you have to really think of that. Whereas if you take the Aristotelian way or Hayek's price theory or the way Wikipedia works, is that all information in the world is reflected in.
Is there a combination? Isn't reality a little bit of both or not?
I'm Catholic, so I believe in free will. I believe in personal morality. I believe in a responsibility to others, charity, stuff like that.
I agree.
Everything that you want, that people want from government, I believe.
But it's bizarro world.
Government is just using the force of a gun to stop someone from doing what they are going to do. So when do you get to do that? When I'm giving you meth?
But it's
Robert
bizarro
gets to come
world.
with a gun?
Because Monica likes to Monica likes to give charity. Monica takes care of herself. Monica and her family are self-sustaining. That's this side. Other side of the coin is there's Tom or Clint, who's an asshole, who's going to talk to 10 people, and of the 5 that he can overpower and take their stuff and be a jerk to and take from and not give back. All of a sudden, that impact on Monica's world. Now, Monica says, well,
you're allowed
I've got a gun to defend myself against this guy's gun. But if these 6 people don't have guns or they don't have the strength to fight back, then I'm saying to you, we've talked about this before.
Comes in. I don't believe that, because that's minimalism and I'm an anarchist. But that is where Robert comes in. If Tom's an asshole and does meth and then steals from people, you don't take his meth away. You stop him from stealing from people.
And put him in jail.
Put him in jail for stealing.
Yeah.
Not for doing meth.
I agree. All right.
But he wouldn't be stealing because he wouldn't be doing meth, because he'd be
but people have stole before meth was created. I mean, there's been thieves.
Yes. Stealing and killing are the only 2 legitimate things that you can send.
Beating people. Yeah, I mean, me and you are on the same page. Look at that. Their due process is by the defendants being before a court of law, judge, jury, etc. Upon their conviction in Tennessee, declares them infamous upon conviction of a felony.
But what is the due process of an individual to lose his right to vote? I don't believe
after they serve their time, there is a process for them obtaining their voting rights back for certain crimes. Okay.
But why? How is it if they lose it automatically by being convicted? How?
Right.
See, that's what I think. Mandatory sentences, 3 strikes you're out. Anything that burdens the trial, the due process, anything that takes that due process, that constitutional due process, and just pile something on it. So you have a trial by jury to talk about the punishment for the individual crime that you committed. Anything that says, and the jury cannot adjudicate your case specifically. He must do X, Y, and Z. That is unconstitutional.
Yeah, now, that's what he's saying too. You can get your right back.
I know, but you've lost it. The default state is to lose it.
It's backwards.
I say there should be due process on whether or not that is part of your specific punishment.
Right.
And there's no reason to have these blanket laws. There's no reason whatsoever.
The defendants are advised
is to push
at the time of conviction.
But being advised is not the same thing as being as having the jury decide specifically. That's
if this person loses their right, or if they get to keep their right
to a specific thing.
Because this case is different than the last case, and it ought to be based off the specificity of the case.
And it's a moral hazard to do it that way if you want to take the practical approach, because the reason they do it that way is that they want certain group outcomes. They want to be able to push a lot more people through the system, put a lot more people in jail, control the outcomes in a systemic way, which they cannot do if every individual has the individual right.
Can I ask you a quick question? Because then we're going to move on to the tweets. But are you surprised this year? I guess I say I'm not, but part of me really is. I am surprised at the looting and the all-out chaos and riots that we have not only allowed to go on, but I'm surprised they've been as, I don't know. it just hurts my heart as an American to see it. I really get sad looking at it. Who is that?
It's been created. I do not think it's natural. I think I've always said you're not going to get riots in this country until people are hungry. Now, amazingly, they had this opportunity to force people to be hungry, and they gave them checks instead. So
but they're not hungry. They're not. I've watched some of them. They're stealing TVs. They're not stealing bread.
But what they did instead, so I just felt like you had to be under that kind of pressure to just like bust out. But what they did instead is they put everybody in solitary. And then they said the only way you can get out is if you put on this mindset. So they made this happen.
Yeah.
Of just rioting or whatever. Like they just made it happen, and then the right plays into it. The city governments pull the cops back. And
should the cops go in harder, do you think, and squash it? If you were living in Seattle, would you want your police officers to stop it?
so much of it happened around government property, which shows you that it's a play. It's a stage play.
Well, but I mean, yeah, but I mean, like there's the Vietnamese church in Philadelphia that got burned. There's hundreds of local businesses that have nothing to do with government property that have been destroyed. My question is,
I'm saying
would you
those people should stand there with their guns and defend their own property.
I get that.
Are they?
I don't know. I guess my question is, minus that, don't you feel that the police should go in and stop them, or not?
I mean, if you
make
me act like somebody who believes that the cops are the way. Okay, so if you want, I'm the wrong person to ask about what a minarchist thinks, but if you want me to answer what a minarchist thinks, which is that cops and courts and the army are legitimate functions of the government, or that there is a government force is legitimate in those cases, then the cops supposedly that we pay for them to protect life and property. That's what they are. They share in our right to self-defense.
Right.
That is the only legitimacy they have, is that they are an extension of our own right to self-defense. So anything that we can do, they, in that regard, they are theoretically emboldened to do. But the court has stated that they are not required even to do it. So they are really there as a deterrent. That's the only purpose they serve. They are not. They will tell you, we are not getting your stuff back. We won't get there in time to defend you. They're a deterrent. So when you see images of cops running away from rioters, it completely makes it so that cops are never going to be effective. And that is an exacerbating factor. And I think we're going to see phase 2 of all that come down, because now they don't even serve that facade, that psychological purpose.
I spoke to a guy last night who just moved to Atlanta from Chicago to get away from the looting and rioting that was happening in his neighborhood. He couldn't take it anymore.
There's some of that in Atlanta too. The cities. They aren't defending their own property.
Yeah, there we go.
Because guns are illegal or severely restricted. That's right. And that's why it happens in the Democrat places. People have asked me that. I kind of flubbed that question on Sam Tripoli because when he asked me that, because I just wasn't prepared for it. But it's become pretty clear that they've disarmed these people and they've fed into this.
It's the no gun zone, the gun free zones that or you can't own a gun or don't bring a gun here. Yeah.
Right. And then
it's ridiculous.
So what you've done is you've relinquished your part of that partnership to a bunch of people who betray you. And that is why I don't believe in government.
Well, and this is where you and I can hold hands in hands and play Red Rover on here. Me and you'll stand side by side on this one. What happens is when you create these gun-free zones or start restricting it, and I'm a law-abiding citizen and I want to be a good citizen in my brain, I want to be a good citizen. I want to be a good citizen. I'm not going to carry the gun. Meanwhile, asshole Tommy over here and, jerk off, Suzanne are going to bring their guns because they're criminals and they don't care about the laws. I'm left defenseless and I get out of the way because I don't want to get shot. My store goes up in flames or my house goes up in flames. Yeah. Then I see the couple in St. Louis that do bring their guns on their front line on private property and still get in trouble. So I'm confused.
Like in St. Louis, but I absolutely think
it's
that
total horseshit.
The most important thing to do is locally make sure that you have the right to bear arms. I mean, those people gave up their right to defend their property when they allowed those gun laws to come in.
That was private property, yeah.
Voting does actually result in. I mean, I think like voting on the propositions today in California, the votes will probably determine the outcome. I don't think they can control every single solitary vote.
Robert Starnes, peaceful protesting is way different from looting and destruction. No comparison. Absolutely, Robert. You and I are 100.
That?
No, he's just making the point. He's just contributing to the conversation. I agree with you 100%, Robert. Gun laws.
His next comment is excellent too.
Yep. Yeah. Gun laws only hurt lawful citizens. I agree with that one 100%. I've never understood the concept in my entire life of saying you can't bring a gun in here. I don't know. Because then the criminals are never, people that are willing to bring a gun into my house and break in, they know they're breaking. I don't understand. They know they're breaking the law. It's a common sense thing.
Way, I don't understand how women can be against guns. I mean, it's as if guns were made solely for women to be able to defend themselves.
I just renewed my concealed carry license. My wife is about to do the same. I am too. I'll be honest with you. I've carried a gun. I've got 2 or 3 of them, and I've never had a carry. And I'll tell you this, I used to take a trip when I would go on family vacations when I was married, and I kept a gun under my front seat and I had a gun with me most of the time. And a buddy of mine who's a police officer told me, he said, listen, if you're a dad and you are taking a trip with your family and you get pulled over in another state, 99.9% of the time, if that policeman asks you, do you have a gun in the car? And you say, yes, sir. Do you have a permit? And you say, no, sir, I'm on vacation with my family and I keep it under the car. It's like, he said 99% of the time a police officer say, no problem, I understand.
Wow.
And that's true.
In New York, I remember you had to put the gun in a locked box in the vehicle.
What good does that serve?
Of course, it does them good.
I got a locked box, and I got to be Barney Fife trying to Magna PI, get in the front door while the Dobermans are running at me. Bunch of dummies. Nope. Criminals don't abide by laws, therefore being a criminal. Absolutely. It's common sense stuff. Hey, Monica, we just took an hour and killed it. You got time for 2 or 3 tweets so we can follow through with what we say we're going to do?
Yes. This
has been fun. This was a good one.
So fun. Yeah. See, a few drinks doesn't hurt too bad if I got that taco.
All right. If you go to tell everybody what your Twitter handle is.
Yes, at Monica Perez Show is my Twitter. Harkens back to my years on WSB. But right now, my show is the Propaganda Report on all of your favorite podcasting feeds.
Here we go. What do these people mean by, quote, social value, quote, unquote? And why do they work so hard for it? Talk about Barnum's statements and glittering generalities.
What was the headline?
I am making available the entire 105-page Time magazine, the Great Reset edition of download. Yeah,
so there was one article in there that was specific. There was like a bunch of like pictures, and one of them was a guy, a CEO of some company, saying, we're going to make sure that social justice is a part of our corporate mission statement going forward, which makes me insane for like numerous reasons. Well, for this one reason. Social justice or whatever. First of all, in order for us to be able to benefit from capitalism as laborers, as workers that are not the capital, not the people who own the capital. So that's the whole Marxist tension, right? Is labor versus capital. We have completely solved that problem without anyone really mentioning it by having a share, stock exchange. So you can go and participate in capital. They won't allow us to do that without contributing to a political cause that we may or may not agree with by incorporating political issues into corporate mission statements.
Yes.
Now, he says social justice, because who can be against that? And I say, let's define social justice, because my guess is you aren't just this uniquely altruistic person who happened to dedicate his life to others and became the CEO of a global corporation, because those two skill sets are not the same. So why do you want social justice as defined by you or somebody
I don't
else?
think corporations should be doing that. It bothers me whenever I hear that phrase. My radar goes up immediately.
And these CEOs are politicians. Very few of them have really built the company from scratch. And I would say all those big tech guys are frauds. It is they all have the same thing. I dropped out of high school, college. I built this thing in my basement. I built the company. I got the funding. Now it's a bigger company. I managed it. I grew it. I'm the biggest company in the world. And I talked to Congress. The same human being does all of those things. It's not, those people are
facades, they're fronts. Let me just go ahead and say right now, and I'll speak on behalf of Monica, for me and you and Binkley too. Dear big brother and big sister, if you're looking for the next billionaire person that you want to be a shill, I'm okay to live on the other end. I've lived knowing if my water bill I have to break my water bill every month up into 4 separate payments. I'm ready for that not to happen. Come ahead.
Be the Sam Walton of
bring it.
Jack Walton.
Yeah.
You want people dressing up as Clint Powell for Halloween?
You said that before you came on. That was very well done. If you go to the Monica Perez Show, another one you put out there was a closer look at the states that stayed open. And it was from AIER.org.
Yes, the American Institute of Economic Research. It's a libertarian think tank. It was kind of an old article, people said, a couple of months old. And it's very hard to, I actually do not subscribe to or like research that just takes a lot of correlated factors and implies that they're causal. So if California had mask restrictions and Montana didn't, and California had a higher rate than Montana. Well, nobody even sees each other in Montana, probably. There would probably be no reason to have a mask. And there's probably a lot of other reasons why people in Montana would not get sick, whereas people in 5G, electricity, whatever makes people sick. So I would say that those correlated factors actually travel in bundles. But my point is that if you want to take one of these dumb type studies that the government does, which I don't, AIER people respect. I'm not saying they were dumb, but I'm saying they're using the same tactics the states use to say, by your own methods of measurement, the lockdown bears no or even inverse correlation to infection rate. And infection rate just makes me crazy. They're talking about positive PCR tests, and PCR tests have no value in this realm.
I read a good article the other night about the difference between the mortality rate of cases and mortality rate versus infections. And I wish I should have sent it to you because it was right up your alley, but it was just talking about how one of them per in cases is something they use when they look back on a pandemic, and per infection is something you can use during the pandemic. And it was just telling that sometimes you have people, even leaders that don't know how to read a study, they will use these terms interchangeably, which drastically affects what they mean. And the numbers aren't correlating all the time.
Yeah, there was something in the Lancet on that. I would take it one step further and say there's no such thing as an infection that is not a case. This idea of asymptomatic viral shedding, I question. I don't think that there's ever been a case of someone who has never had and never does have symptoms spreading. Typhoid Mary was not a real thing. She was not. She was
my buddy.
She was not real.
I had a buddy on. He's really young. I had him on with Ed Jones. We do this conversation every couple of weeks, but we talked about all things keto. He's into bodybuilding and stuff. They run a nutrition store here, but he posted on the beach. He's on vacation. He's reading the book. What's the book you always talk about? The germ theory,
infectious myth, or virus mania, or inventing the HIV virus.
No, there's one about germs that you actually call it the germ theory.
Germ theory versus terrain theory.
Well, there's a book called Germ Theory he's reading, and he showed a picture of it, and I thought, I bet Monica would either have read that
they don't
or she
call
has
it germ theory because it's been proven, and they've had an awful
He's reading a book about it right now. It's a conspiracy book he's reading right now. All right, here we go. Let's read some more comments, and then I got one more tweet. Here we go. John Jasper.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm an hour late because UK clocks went back last Sunday. Robert Starn says if we start he'll be our security. He's about 6'5" and about 250.
Yeah, no, I'm ready. I get it.
And JG Boogie, UK implementing lockdown 2.
Which I think they're talking about how people are sick of it. They're going to blame our resisting that for the change in tack, which I believe will be isolation. I think concentration camps.
You said that on here before. That bothers me when you said it.
I think that's this lockdown will fail, and that's what that World Series thing was about, in my opinion.
What World Series? I don't know what you're talking about.
The guy was pulled during the game Tuesday night. They're like,
I didn't watch it. I don't watch pro sports. I don't watch them.
All right,
what happened?
Good for you.
Yeah,
a guy on the final.
I don't like the fact they support social justice bullcrap. So go ahead.
Yeah, I forget the guy's name. I had it 2 seconds ago, but he said.
And then we got to do a couple more tweets and we'll get out of here. Well, while you're looking, I'm going to pull this comment up. Look at this. JG Boogie, it's a challenge. Try finding a picture of Bill Gates wearing a mask. You will not find one.
Wow.
You know what? Now that you're saying that, I haven't seen one. Yeah, so you were trying to find the quote of a baseball player?
Guy, he got pulled during the final moments on Tuesday night at the end, just before they won the World Series, because they said we just got a positive test back for one of these guys, which makes no sense at all. They're getting the results on Tuesday night. They took a test that wouldn't even be that you wouldn't have the results for before the last game or potentially the last game. Like, it was just weird. And they pulled the guy from the game and they had him in isolation with security. And when the team won the World Series, he ran out onto the field with the rest of them, high-fiving, belly flopping or whatever, took pictures. And the lesson in today's Wall Street Journal.
Justin Turner.
That's it. Justin Turner. And I was thinking Josh Turner or Josh, whatever. I was thinking of other people. First COVID sports season delivers lessons for others. Okay. So there are going to be others. But what they did there was in this article in the journal today, it said that example proves that people cannot resist temptation. They actually use the language of sin and morality.
Oh, wow.
They will bust through even this kind of friendly security to indulge their impulses. And to me, this is all a lead in to saying you cannot be trusted. You will give into temptation, and we have to be able to physically take you away and put you in a concentration camp because
if you can't control it, we will.
You're Typhoid Mary.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrifying.
Even in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, where they've started to talk about this stuff a little bit, I think they're already doing it in Australia. It's not just people who have it. It's people who have been in contact with it or other reasons.
Well, guess who's interviewing somebody from Australia next week?
Really?
Yeah, I've had her up 2 or 3 times, and she's a CrossFit guru, but she's coming on, and one of the things we want to talk about is here's the name of the book. You ready? It's not the germ. It's not the germ theory. Hold on, I will. But look, I was wrong. This is the name of the book.
Oh, The Contagion Myth. I have that book.
Yeah, that's what he's reading, and I thought that's Monica.
That I haven't read it. The Contagion Myth. It was pushed. People, it has gotten some press, so I feel like it might be a limited hangout, but I'm not going to diss it until
At least they're reading it, right? At least they're.
I don't know.
Book by Dr. William Trebine, Goodbye to Germ Theory, Ending a Century of Medical Fraud.
Now that sounds more like it.
That sounds terrifying as well.
Well, The Contagion Myth, I mean, by the name of it, I have that book and I looked through it, and I shouldn't diss it until I read it, but there was some reason why I didn't put it on the top of my pile. At
Monica Perez shows Zuck can't stop looking like Data
from Star Trek.
It's so ID funny. Like to see Jack's right ear. He might be channeling his handler. I don't even know what that means.
I think Jack Dorsey isn't even a tech guy, honestly.
His answers the other day on the hill when he was up for was just, oh my God.
Was he like stoned?
No, they were horrible. It's just terrible answers. I'm listening to him, and he's like, he's one of the, I don't know. You just go back and listen to it. He's just full of shit.
Yeah, well, even before he got there that day, I did a little research on his backstory. It's like he was an actor, he was a masseur, he was a fashion designer. I'm not sure I believe this guy.
You're going to pull down the stuff about Biden, but he said that they have other rules that will allow stuff to be posted about
Section 230.
But the Holocaust denier. You can deny the Holocaust, but you can't, whatever.
He's playing into a theme that makes it look random and irrational so that the government gets support to regulate it from left and right. That he is playing a game, he's playing a role, and you're falling for it, bro.
I'm not falling for anything. I'm trying to pay my light bill. I can't affect anything.
I wish I could help you. And you know what?
You are helping me. OMFG, Monica wrote at the Monica Perez Show. Just wrote in my show notes for today, just like Spanish flu. Then saw this in my Google's 5 stories for Monica. And the headline was what to learn from the 1918's deadly second wave.
Yes. That G is a small G for gosh.
Oh yeah, it was a small G. Yes.
Small G. So so I had been saying they were talking about the European second wave and how it was going to be deadlier than the first, and that it became, and this is something, if you actually were paying attention to germ theory when we were taught it, they are saying that it's both more infectious and more virulent, so that it gets around more and it's more deadly, which is just logically impossible, and it's also against what we've always been taught about this stuff. And then I thought that's just like what they were saying about the Spanish flu. Although in the case of the Spanish flu, some doctors said it isn't even the same thing. It's not even the same illness, the second wave, or that maybe the second wave was correlated with, but it doesn't mutate to get more virulent. It mutates to get less virulent because the people where it isn't as big a deal, they're the ones who stay out in the community and spread it around. The people who get super, super sick, they are in bed or dead. That's how it works. That's how we've always been taught that it works. And then what they did with the Spanish flu is they started implementing things like mask policy and other stuff, which back then, a lot of aspirin and stuff that just made people worse. And then lockdowns, when they had bacterial pneumonia killing more people than the flu, when you lock those people together in a room, you with masks on, you may actually create the environment for greater sickness. I'm just speculating, but there were doctors back then who said it wasn't the same thing. And I would say these guys are trying to take a page from the Spanish flu story, which is spurious in itself.
All right, I want to read through these last 2 or 3 real quick, and then I'm gonna let you actually expound on the last one. Yeah.
Halloween party to go to for my son.
Oh, do you need to go out the second?
Yeah.
Okay, well then we will skip over these 2, and I'll go straight to the last one. Okay. Home ownership will be a thing of the past.
I do think that that's what they're working on. The first 2008 crash was
that was based off a Wall Street Journal article, I think.
I think 2 things are going to converge in the spring. I shouldn't say I think. I fear that, because I just don't know. I'm not great at reading this kind of thing. I fear that what's going to happen, and that's what this article is about, this massive backlog of evictions. So tons of people are going to be out on the street. They're not going to pay their landlords back. Their landlords are going to have to charge way, way lower rents.
Or go bankrupt.
And a lot of those guys, the middle market guys, are going to go bankrupt. And then you'll have someone like Carlos Slim, who has said, like, my dad taught me how to amass wealth is to wait for the crash and then hoover everything up. So they're waiting for that. And I think LA and New York, the evil government on top there, are promoting this crash that will benefit their buddies. But at the same time, something else might happen that I fear that nobody's talking about is a lot of people right now with this incredibly low interest rates and wanting more space to move out of the city and all that kind of stuff because they've got a Zoom at home and everything. They are using their 2019 tax returns to get mortgages on bigger houses.
Oh, yeah.
And then because they think that they have enough to get them through 12 months. And when they see that this thing is 18 months, a lot of those people are not going to be able to pay those mortgages. And then you're going to have another mortgage crisis. And
that's when you're saying home ownership kind of goes away.
I'm afraid that with that all these bankruptcies are going to result in a second wave of what happened the first time, which is home ownership went down and very big corporate ownership of apartments and stuff. Even Airbnb conglomerates would buy up apartments just to Airbnb out as if it were a big hotel.
Let's do this real quick. That's what's going to happen. Let's read this one last comment, and then I'm going to ask you how to find more about you. Okay. Thanks to Robert Starnes. In a year, it will be interesting to see how many died from suicide, drug addiction, etc., because of the long-lasting lockdowns. I agree with that.
I read an article that asked, it was on a journalist website, asked journalists not to cover suicides for a while.
Yeah, I don't think people understand, and I actually had this conversation with another friend of mine on his podcast, is all life when it ends is tragic most of the time. I mean, when that happens, it's tragic, there's sad, it affects other people. But the life of the small business owner who can't feed his family or her family any longer, those children and the life, if there is a suicide, or those lives matter too. Those lives are statistics too.
Well, and it might have a cultural impact. So the Cultural Revolution, the Mao's Cultural Revolution, and Cambodia had something where they killed people with eyeglasses and stuff. Those are cultural manipulations. Like if they can target who dies, so old people in this case are being targeted. And if they're targeting the entrepreneur, the old school, the guy who brings that value forward, even in a small way, it can have a big cultural impact. So
well, you said something, and then I want you to tell people how to find your products and get your T-shirts and your coffee mugs and all that good stuff because you kick ass. But I will say that you said something about a month or two ago, Monica Perez, and it really resonated with me. Look at that beautiful thing. That's art. That's not even a coffee mug. I would buy that and put it in a framed case.
Nice thin rim. Okay.
Well, you said something about how people are leaving the urban hubs and they're voting blue, and they're going to go into the countrysides. They're going to go into the suburban area, and they're going to go to Texas and Wyoming and Montana's, and slowly it's going to go from red to purple to blue, and that's part of the plan.
Yeah, and
if you believe that, then you believe that Biden is on the side of bad and Trump is on the side of good. And I'm glad to have you on my side finally. Look how
I don't. I need that little head exploding emoji. But that would be another way to defeat the popular versus electoral thing. Is that if the reason the popular vote would overwhelm the electoral college, blue versus red, is because all the urbanized places, those people have more.
So they just send their votes out because they can repopulate the blue. Yeah.
Another way to do it, or it's a double whammy in that it won't change the popular vote. It will change the electoral college, and the electoral college is a reflection of senators and congressmen. So you can make the popular
they're going to add Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. in states anyway, and they're going to slant it that way. So it won't matter in 10 years. Yeah. It's all lost cause anyway. I'm just kidding. Hey, real quick.
He's making fun of me because the mug is bigger than my head.
I love that coffee mug. Hey, Monica, you're the witch. I'm the lumberjack today. Why don't you tell people how to find out more about you?
I am Monica Perez. You can reach me at Twitter at Monica Perez Show. You can check out my website, thepropreport.com. If you want to hear my daily show, news of the day from a perspective of truth, liberty, and justice, go to Propaganda Report on your favorite podcasting feed. And if you want to go to the parties and get lots of extra content, you can go to patreon.com/propaganda report. And Binkley and I make weekly videos on Rockfin. That's a subscription, but I realized I didn't know we can put tons of free stuff on there too. We're going to do that. We're going to live stream on election.
Real quick, night. Are you really? You're live streaming on Rockfin?
Subscription only, like, not a lot of people are going to do that.
So now, is that a platform that you have to pay for as the Propaganda Report? No, you pay for that too?
No. Okay. People subscribe, and then they give us it's like a kind of Bitcoin. I haven't gotten any cash, but I don't know what it is. It's just fun to be part of that network. Sam Tripoli.
You can act. I just want to say this, and we're going to end it right now. You can act. I know you're busy, and you are slam packed, but you love doing it too. You love putting content out there.
You do. I have this huge problem now. I got.
You're famous.
Huh?
You're famous.
No, I'm not. But I got occipital neuralgia from doing this with my head all the time.
Is that appropriate to say on a video?
Yeah, I'm really effed. What? So I don't know what to do. I'm open to suggestion.
So take your head, do this. I do this about 20 times a day.
Yeah, I am going to PT.
And it'll pop. My neck pops.
Stuff. Oh, it hurts so much, but I just feel like I can't move. And then my husband, I was trying to complain like a good woman does, just yada, 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 yada. And you know what my husband said?
He probably said, "I love you, and you're the best thing that ever happened to me."
He says that all the time, literally.
Right.
But and I'm like, why? I'm such a bitch. Why?
So what did he say when you were complaining about your neck? He
said, "Yeah, we're getting old."
What? I thought you told me you were 35.
40-something, and I always will be.
Yeah, I knew there was a catch there.
40-something, and I was like, John Jasper's been there since the beginning. He knows. He remembers somebody tricked me on the air to saying how old I was. And then I said,
when they tricked you, what was your answer?
Well, the actual answer was 40 with the number after it.
What is it now, though? Well, I know what it was then. What is it now? What's your age?
40-something.
Now my challenge is to get you to say your age on the air. All right, Monica.
Someday that will be implausible, sadly.
Did you say you're going to a birthday party?
I'm going to a Halloween party with my son who has Down syndrome because he got so upset. He wrote a letter to Trump, bring back Halloween.
Did you send it?
That. Yes. And I think he's getting a letter back.
Oh.
Anyway.
You silly. What's he going as? What's he dressing up as?
He has an animatronic werewolf mask. So it can kind of roar. So when this COVID thing first started and I told him to walk the dog, he said, "Oh, let me get my mask." I was like, all right, if he wants to wear a mask. He walked the dog in the werewolf mask around the neighborhood. People were freaking.
That's one of my favorite things ever.
Super funny.
That is awesome.
Is Chinese from China. It's like a really nice neighborhood, but not everybody speaks English and stuff. And there's definitely a cultural divide. And the grandma and the grandpa are in the house and they see this lunatic kid and I bet they have never seen somebody with Down syndrome.
That makes me so happy that he walked it. And you know what? Good for him.
He's hilarious.
A pure soul.
Truly hilarious.
Hey, Monica, thank you very much.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everybody. Hey, and by the way, tell your family I said hi. I sent you a video on Messenger. Go check it out.
Facebook.
But just go. It's your message in Messenger. Go check it out. It's a minute and 15 seconds. It's a minute and 15 seconds.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. Happy Halloween.